What kind of person threatens a family fighting for their child's life over a flower garden? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud as Emily Harper stood on her porch, staring at the violation notice clutched in her trembling hand. The paper was crisp, official, stamped with the Meadowbrook HOA logo, and signed by Karen Whitaker, the neighborhood's self-appointed guardian of perfection. Unapproved flora, it read, citing her son's small garden of sunflowers, planted with shaky hands by 8-year-old Liam, who was battling leukemia. The fine was $500, due in 10 days, or further action would be taken. Emily's chest tightened. Every penny in their account was earmarked for Liam's treatments, hospital visits, and the experimental drug trial they'd fought to get him into. She could still hear his weak giggle from yesterday, dirt smudged on his pale cheeks as he pressed seeds into the soil, whispering, "These will grow tall for you, Mom. Now this." Emily's world had shrunk to hospital rooms and medical bills since Liam's diagnosis a year ago. The single mother of two had sold her car, cashed out her savings, and worked night shifts at the diner to keep up. The sunflowers were Liam's idea, a spark of joy in a life tethered to 4 drips. He'd seen them in a book about hope, their golden petals reaching for the sky, and begged to plant them in their tiny front yard. Emily didn't think to check the HOA's labyrinth of rules. Meadowbrook was a quiet, manicured suburb outside Denver, where every lawn was identical, every mailbox approved. Karen Whitaker, president of the HOA board, patrolled the streets like a hawk, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Neighbors whispered about her, how she'd find a Miller's for a basketball hoop, how she'd reported the Garcias dog for barking too loudly. But this was a new low. Emily's first instinct was to crumple the notice and scream. Instead, she tucked it into her pocket and glanced at Liam, asleep on the couch, his small frame swallowed by a blanket. His sister, Mia, 12 and fiercely protective, sat beside him, reading aloud from a dog-eared copy of The Secret Garden. Emily's heart ached. She'd promised Liam he could keep his sunflowers, that they'd grow strong like him. Now, Karen's threat loomed like a guillotine. Emily wasn't a fighter by nature. She avoided conflict, kept her head down, but something snapped inside her. She wasn't just defending a garden. She was defending her son's hope. The next morning, Emily marched to the community center for the HOA meeting, Liam's medical files tucked under her arm. The room smelled of stale coffee and bureaucracy, with folding chairs arranged in a semicircle. Karen sat at the head, her blonde bob immaculate, her navy blazer buttoned tight. She smiled thinly as Emily entered, as if she'd been expecting her. The other board members, Tom, a retired accountant, Sarah, a nervous mother of 3, and Greg, a lawyer who rarely spoke, shuffled papers awkwardly. A handful of neighbors lingered in the back, curious about the showdown. Emily's palms were sweaty, but her voice was steady as she stood. "My son planted those sunflowers. He's sick. He might not." She choked on the word live. "We can't pay this fine. We need an exception." Karen's smile didn't waver. "Rules are rules, Ms. Harper. Unapproved plantings disrupt the aesthetic harmony of Meadowbrook. If we let one person break the covenant, everyone will." Her tone was calm, almost rehearsed, but her eyes gleamed with something colder. Emily felt her blood boil. She slid Liam's medical records across the table. "This is what we're dealing with. Hospital bills, chemo, a trial that might save him. And you're worried about flowers?" The room went silent. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Sarah looked at her hands. Greg cleared his throat, but said nothing. Karen leaned forward, unfazed. "I'm sorry about your son, truly. But personal circumstances don't exempt anyone. The fine stands." Emily's vision blurred with tears, but she refused to break. She'd expected resistance, but not this heartless wall. As she opened her mouth to argue, a neighbor in the back, Mrs. Chun, stood up. "Karen, this is ridiculous. That boy's fighting for his life. Let it go." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Karen's smile faltered, just for a second, before she doubled down. "If you all want chaos, fine. But I'm enforcing the rules to protect property values. You'll thank me when your homes sell for top dollar." The arrogance in her voice was a match to gasoline. Emily slammed her hand on the table. "You don't get to decide what's valuable to us. Those sunflowers are my son's heart. You want to fine us? Take me to court." The room erupted. Neighbors shouted, some siding with Emily, others muttering about rules. Karen's face reddened, but she held her ground, banging her gavel. Order. This meeting is adjourned. As people dispersed, Emily caught Karen whispering to Greg, something about escalating enforcement. The words sent a chill down her spine. She didn't know what Karen was planning, but she knew it wasn't good. That night, Emily sat by Liam's bed, watching his chest rise and fall. She made a silent vow. Karen wouldn't win. Not this time. Emily didn't sleep. Her mind churned with Karen's cold dismissal and the HOA's spineless silence. By dawn, she was scouring the HOA bylaws, a dense packet of legalese that made her eyes ache. She found a section on fines. Violations required a board vote, not just the president's decree. Karen hadn't followed protocol. Emily's pulse quickened. This was her opening. She spent the morning calling neighbors, rallying support. Mrs. Chun was first, her voice sharp with indignation. Karen's been bullying people for years. I'm in. Others joined. Mr. Patel, whose holiday lights had been banned. The Wilsons, fined for a non-compliant fence. By noon, Emily had a small army. They agreed to demand a special meeting to overturn the fine. Karen, meanwhile, wasn't idle. Emily spotted her that afternoon, clipboard in hand, inspecting the sunflowers with a smirk. When Emily stepped outside, Karen didn't flinch. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Ms. Harper. Pay the fine, remove the plants, and we're done. Emily crossed her arms. You didn't follow the rules, Karen. The board didn't vote. For a moment, Karen's composure cracked, her eyes narrowing. You think you can outsmart me? I've run this HOA for 10 years. I know every loophole. She turned on her heel, but not before Emily noticed her glance at the house next door, where a new for sale sign had just gone up. Something about that look felt wrong. The special meeting was set for Friday, 3 days away. Emily spent every spare moment preparing, her diner shifts blurring into late-night strategy sessions. Mia helped, printing flyers that read, "Save Liam's sunflowers," and slipping them under doors. The neighborhood buzzed. Posts appeared on the Meadowbrook Facebook group, some calling Karen a tyrant, others defending her standards. Emily ignored the noise, focusing on her speech. She'd appeal to the board's humanity, show them Liam's medical records, and expose Karen's procedural overreach. But doubt gnawed at her. Karen was relentless, and Emily was just one tired mom. The twist came Wednesday night. Emily was washing dishes when Mia burst in, holding her phone. Mom, look at this. It was a video, posted anonymously on the Facebook group, showing Karen at the community pool last summer, berating a teenage lifeguard until he quit. The comments were brutal. She's a control freak. This is why we need new leadership. Emily's heart raced. The video wasn't about her, but it was ammunition. Someone was turning on Karen, and the timing couldn't be better. By morning, the video had spread, racking up shares across town. Neighbors who'd stayed silent now texted Emily their support. Even Greg, the quiet board member, sent a cryptic message. Check the HOA financials. You'll want to see page 17. Emily dug into the records, borrowed from Mrs. Chun, who'd kept copies from her time on the board. Page 17 listed miscellaneous expenses totaling $12,000, signed off by Karen alone. No receipts, no explanations. Emily's hands shook. Was Karen skimming funds? She wasn't sure, but it was another crack in Karen's armor. She shared the find with her allies, who agreed to bring it up at the meeting. The tide was turning, but Emily felt the weight of what was coming. Karen wouldn't go down without a fight, and Emily was stepping into a lion's den. Friday arrived, and the community center was packed. Neighbors filled every chair, some standing in the back, phones ready to record. Karen sat at the head, her face a mask of calm, but her knuckles were white around her gavel. Emily stood, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'm here for my son, Liam. He's fighting leukemia, and those sunflowers are his hope. Karen issued a fine without a board vote, breaking the bylaws. I'm asking you to overturn it. She laid out Liam's medical records, her voice cracking as she described his struggle. The room was silent, faces softening. Sarah, the board member, wiped her eyes. Tom nodded slowly. Even Greg looked uneasy. Karen stood, her voice sharp. This isn't about sympathy. It's about order. If we bend to rules for one, we lose control. Property values will tank. But her words fell flat. Mrs. Chun stood next, holding up the financial records. Karen explained the $12,000 in miscellaneous expenses. No vote, no receipts. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face paled, but she recovered quickly. Those are legitimate expenses. You're out of line. The room exploded in shouts. Emily seized the moment, holding up her phone with the lifeguard video. This is who's enforcing your rules. A bully. We deserve better. The meeting spiraled into chaos. Neighbors demanded answers. Karen banged her gavel, shouting for order, but no one listened. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Greg, the silent lawyer, stood. I've reviewed the financials. There's evidence of misappropriation. I'm calling for an audit. The room froze. Karen's eyes widened, her composure shattering. You have no proof, she snapped, but her voice trembled. Emily felt a surge of hope. The truth was unraveling, and Karen was cornered. The community center felt like a pressure cooker ready to burst. Karen's gavel lay abandoned on the table, her authority crumbling under the weight of Greg's accusation. Emily stood frozen, clutching Liam's medical files like a shield, her eyes locked on Karen, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of shock and outrage. Mrs. Chun waved the financial records, her voice cutting through the noise. We trusted you, Karen. Where's the money? Neighbors leaned forward, some filming, others shouting questions. Karen's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, she looked small, her navy blazer no longer a suit of armor. Greg stepped forward, his usual reticence gone. I've seen the bank statements. Payments to a landscaping company that doesn't exist. Checks cashed by an account linked to you, Karen. He held up a folder, its contents fanned out like evidence in a courtroom. The room erupted again, but this time, the anger was unified, a tidal wave crashing over Karen's defenses. Emily's heart pounded. She hadn't expected this. Not financial fraud, not from the HOA. Her fight for Liam's sunflowers had cracked open something much bigger. Karen found her voice, shrill and defensive. This is slander. I've dedicated years to this community, keeping it pristine, valuable. You think you can accuse me without proof? She pointed at Greg, then Emily, her finger trembling. You're all jealous, trying to tear me down. But the crowd wasn't buying it. Mr. Patel stood, his voice booming. You fined my family $200 for Christmas lights. Now you're stealing from us. The Wilsons joined in, recounting their own run-ins with Karen's iron fist. The meeting was no longer about sunflowers. It was a reckoning. Emily seized the moment, her voice rising above the chaos. This isn't just about money or rules. It's about compassion. My son is fighting for his life, and you, Karen, threatened his hope over a few flowers. If you can't see that, you don't belong here. The crowd roared in agreement, some clapping, others shouting, step down. Karen's eyes darted to the exit, but there was no escape. Sarah, the nervous board member, finally spoke, her voice shaky but firm. I'm moved to suspend Karen as president, pending an audit. Tom seconded it. The vote was swift, 3-0, with Karen's own vote invalid. She was out. But Karen wasn't done. She lunged for the financial folder in Greg's hands, knocking papers to the floor. You can't do this, she screamed, her composure shattered. The crowd gasped as she shoved Greg, who stumbled but held his ground. Emily's stomach dropped. This was escalating too fast. Mrs. Chun dialed 911, her voice steady. We need police at the Meadowbrook Community Center. Now. Karen froze, her hand still clutching a crumpled page from the folder. The room fell into a tense hush, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. Minutes later, 2 officers entered, their presence commanding silence. The lead officer, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, addressed the crowd. We got a call about a disturbance. What's going on? Mrs. Chin stepped forward, explaining the accusations, fines, fraud, and now assault. Karen's protests grew frantic. This is a setup. They're lying. But the evidence was damning. The financial records, the video of her bullying, the witnesses. The officer's eyes narrowed as she reviewed the papers Greg handed over. Ma'am, we're taking you in for questioning. Assault and potential fraud are serious. Karen's face crumpled as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Phones flashed, capturing every second. Emily watched, stunned, as Karen was let out, her head bowed, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. The room buzzed with disbelief as the officers left. Emily's legs felt weak, but she stayed standing, her mind reeling. She'd come to save Liam's sunflowers, not to topple an HOA empire. Neighbors approached her, offering hugs, promises of support. "We'll plant more flowers for Liam," Mrs. Chun said, tears in her eyes. Sarah apologized, admitting she'd been too scared to challenge Karen before. Even Tom, gruff and reserved, muttered, "You did good, kid." Emily nodded, overwhelmed, but her thoughts were with Liam. She needed to get home to tell him his garden was safe. As she left the center, the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light on the street. Emily's phone pinged with notifications. The video of Karen's arrest was already spreading online, tagged with Meadowbrook meltdown. By morning, it would be viral, shared across platforms, a story of a community fighting back. But for Emily, it wasn't about fame. It was about Liam's smile, the one she'd see when she told him his sunflowers could stay. She drove home, the weight of the day lifting slightly, replaced by a flicker of hope. The fallout was immediate and relentless. By Saturday morning, Emily's inbox was flooded with messages from neighbors, reporters, and even strangers across the country. The video of Karen's arrest had exploded online, racking up millions of views. News outlets picked it up with headlines like "HOA tyrant handcuffed over sick child's sunflowers," and "Karen's reign of terror ends in viral shame." Emily scrolled through the comments, a mix of support and outrage. "Give that mom a medal," one read. Another, "HOAs are the worst. Glad she got hers." But the attention felt heavy. Emily hadn't wanted a spectacle. She'd wanted to protect her son. At home, Liam was awake, propped up on the couch, his eyes brighter than they'd been in weeks. Mia showed him the video, carefully skipping the chaotic parts. "Mom's a hero," he said, grinning. Emily's heart swelled, but she brushed it off. "I'm just your mom, kiddo. Those sunflowers are staying, okay." Liam nodded, clutching a drawing he'd made, a field of yellow petals under a blue sky. Mia taped it to the fridge, a quiet victory. But Emily knew the fight wasn't over. The audit was underway, and Karen's lawyer had already sent a cease and desist letter, claiming defamation. Emily wasn't intimidated. She had the truth on her side. The HOA board, now led by Greg, called an emergency meeting to address the fallout. Emily attended, wary but determined. The room was less tense without Karen, but the air still carried the weight of what had happened. Greg laid out the audit's early findings. Thousands of dollars funneled to a shell company, likely Karen's. The police were investigating, and the district attorney was considering charges. Neighbors demanded transparency, new leadership, even dissolving the HOA entirely. Emily stayed quiet, letting others lead the charge. Her focus was Liam, whose next treatment was in 2 days. She couldn't afford distractions. But distractions came anyway. A local news crew showed up at her doorstep, cameras rolling. Emily declined to comment, but Mia, bold as ever, snuck out and told them about Liam's sunflowers. The clip aired that night, and donations started pouring in, small amounts from strangers, enough to cover a month's medical bills. Emily cried reading the messages. For Liam's fight. Keep growing those sunflowers. The kindness was overwhelming, but it came with pressure. People were watching, expecting her to be a symbol of resistance. She just wanted to be a mom. Karen, meanwhile, was out on bail, her face plastered across every news site. She released a statement calling the accusations a vicious smear campaign and vowing to clear her name. Emily heard through Mrs. Chun that Karen was rallying her own supporters, a small but vocal group of neighbors who valued her strict standards. They claimed Emily had weaponized Liam's illness to dodge rules. The words stung, but Emily refused to engage. She had bigger battles, hospital visits, blood tests, and Liam's fragile hope. By Monday, the neighborhood was divided. Signs appeared on lawns. Justice for Liam versus support our HO. Emily avoided the stairs as she drove to the hospital, Liam in the back seat, humming softly. The sunflowers stood tall in their yard, a defiant burst of yellow against the manicured green. But that evening, Emily found a brick on her porch, a note tied to it. "You'll regret this." Her stomach churned. She called the police, who took the note and promised to patrol the area. Mia, shaken but fierce, insisted on sleeping in Liam's room that night. Emily stayed up, watching the street, her resolve hardening. Karen, or someone loyal to her, was escalating. This wasn't just about flowers anymore. The audit results came midweek, confirming Greg's suspicions. Karen had siphoned over $20,000 over 3 years, using fake invoices. The news hit the community like a bomb. Neighbors who defended Karen went silent, their signs disappearing. The board voted to dissolve the HOA, replacing it with a voluntary neighborhood council. Emily was asked to join, but she declined. She wasn't a leader, she was a mother. Still, the victory felt hollow. The brick incident lingered, a reminder that Karen's influence hadn't vanished entirely. Emily focused on Liam, whose latest scans showed progress. The trial drug was working, though the side effects were brutal. She sat by his hospital bed, reading The Secret Garden, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. Liam reached for her hand, his fingers cold but strong. "Mom, are the sunflowers okay?" he asked. Emily smiled, brushing his hair back. "They're perfect just like you." She didn't tell him about the brick, or the reporters, or the online storm. She didn't need to. Liam's world was small, and she'd keep it safe as long as she could. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits and headlines. Emily tried to shield Liam and Mia from the chaos, but the story had taken on a life of its own. The viral video of Karen's arrest had sparked a national conversation about HOAs, with think pieces debating their power and pettiness. Strangers sent letters, some calling Emily a hero, others accusing her of stirring drama. She kept the kind ones for Liam to read later, when he was stronger. The rest she burned in the backyard, watching the flames curl around words she didn't need. Karen's legal troubles deepened. The DA filed charges: embezzlement, fraud, and assault for shoving Greg. Her trial was months away, but the court of public opinion had already convicted her. Her house went up for sale, the for sale sign Emily had noticed now making sense. Karen had been planning an exit, maybe with the stolen funds. Neighbors speculated she'd flee, but Karen stayed, her curtains drawn, her car rarely moving. Emily felt no pity. Karen had chosen her path when she threatened a sick child's joy. The neighborhood began to heal. The new council, led by Mrs. Chun, prioritized community over control. They organized a fundraiser for Liam's treatment, transforming the community center into a festival of sunflowers. Kids painted yellow petals on their faces, and adults donated what they could. Liam, too weak to attend, watched a live stream Mia set up, his laughter filling the hospital room. Emily stood in the crowd, overwhelmed by the support. The Wilsons brought a petition to rename the street Sunflower Lane in Liam's honor. Emily signed it, tears blurring her name. But the brick incident hadn't been the last threat. Late one night, Emily found her mailbox spray-painted with the word trouble. She reported it, but the police had no leads. Mia, ever vigilant, started checking the security camera they'd installed. The footage was grainy, but it showed a figure in a hoodie near the mailbox, too vague to identify. Emily's fear grew, but she hid it from her kids. She wouldn't let Karen, or whoever was behind this, win. She bought floodlights and a stronger lock, turning their home into a fortress. Liam's condition stabilized, a small miracle. His doctors were cautiously optimistic, saying the trial drug was shrinking the tumors. Emily clung to every positive word, though she knew the road was long. At home, the sunflowers were thriving, their heads heavy with seeds. Liam insisted on watering them himself, even on his weakest days. "They're my army," he said, grinning. Emily laughed, but her heart ached. She'd fought so hard for those flowers, for him, but the cost was heavy. Sleepless nights, whispered threats, the weight of being a public figure she never wanted to be. The council meeting to finalize the HOA's dissolution was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of weeks before. Emily attended, speaking briefly about Liam's progress and thanking the community. Greg announced that the stolen funds had been traced to an offshore account, though recovery was unlikely. Karen's name was barely mentioned, her reign a fading memory. As Emily left, Mrs. Chun pulled her aside. "You changed this place, Emily. You reminded us what matters." Emily shook her head. "I just wanted to save my son's garden." Mrs. Chun smiled. "And you saved us too." That night, Emily sat with Liam and Mia, watching the stars from their porch. The sunflowers swayed in the breeze, their golden heads glowing under the moonlight. Mia leaned against her, whispering, "We did it, Mom." Liam, bundled in a blanket, pointed at the sky. "Look, a shooting star. Make a wish." Emily closed her eyes, wishing for Liam's health, for peace, for a future where her kids could grow without fear. She didn't need the world's applause. She needed her family, whole and safe. The story could have ended there, with the sunflowers standing tall and the neighborhood reborn. But life doesn't wrap up neatly, and Emily's fight wasn't over. A week after the council meeting, she woke to a call from the police. The figure in the hoodie had been caught on a neighbor's camera, clearer this time. It was Karen's nephew, a sullen 20-something who'd been staying with her. He confessed to the vandalism, claiming Karen had put him up to it, though she denied it. The news hit Emily like a punch. Even defeated, Karen was still pulling strings, her spite lingering like a stain. The vandalism case was small compared to Karen's fraud charges, but it added fuel to the fire. The DA tacked on witness intimidation, ensuring Karen's bail was revoked. She was back in custody, her trial now a media circus. Emily avoided the coverage, but it was inescapable. Her diner co-workers whispered about it, customers asked questions, and Mia kept tabs online. "She's done, Mom," Mia said, showing Emily a headline. "HOA Karen faces years in prison." Emily nodded, but her relief was tempered. She didn't want revenge, she wanted safety. Liam's health became her anchor. His scans were improving, and he was strong enough to spend a day at the park, tossing a frisbee with Mia. Emily watched, her heart full but fragile. The donations from the fundraiser had eased their financial strain, letting her cut back on diner shifts. She started a blog, at Mrs. Chen's urging, to share Liam's story and thank the supporters. It grew quickly, connecting her with other parents of sick kids. Their messages, raw, hopeful, heartbroken, reminded her she wasn't alone. She wrote about the sunflowers, about Liam's courage, about the community that had rallied. The blog became a lifeline, a way to process the chaos. But the threats didn't stop entirely. A few anonymous emails arrived, calling her a troublemaker, or worse. Emily reported them, but the police said tracing them was difficult. She installed more cameras, her paranoia growing. Mia noticed, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Mom, you don't have to do this alone," she said one night, helping Emily check the locks. Emily hugged her, marveling at her daughter's strength. Mia was growing up too fast, forced into a protector's role. It wasn't fair, but it was their reality. The neighborhood continued to transform. The council planted a community garden, dedicating it to Liam. Kids from the block helped, their laughter filling the air as they dug and sewed. Liam, wearing a sun hat to protect his sensitive skin, planted a new row of sunflowers, his hands steadier now. Emily took a photo, the image blurry through her tears. The garden was more than flowers. It was proof that kindness could outlast cruelty. Neighbors who'd once avoided her now waved, their smiles genuine. The Sunflower Lane petition passed, and the street sign went up, a quiet tribute to Liam's fight. Karen's trial began in early spring, just as the sunflowers bloomed again. Emily didn't attend, but Greg kept her updated. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, fake invoices, even emails from Karen to her nephew about teaching Emily a lesson. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before convicting her on all counts. She was sentenced to 5 years, with restitution ordered for the stolen funds. The news spread fast, and Emily's phone lit up with texts. She didn't celebrate. Justice was necessary, but it didn't erase the pain of the past months. Liam's doctors called with more good news. His cancer was in remission. The word felt like a miracle, though Emily knew it wasn't a guarantee. She threw a small party at home, just the 3 of them, with sunflower-shaped cookies Mia had baked. Liam laughed, his energy returning, and asked to plant more flowers. Emily said yes, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The world outside was messy. Reporters still called, and the blog brought both love and hate, but inside their home, they were whole. Spring turned to summer, and the sunflowers in Liam's garden grew taller than him, their golden heads swaying like tiny suns. Emily watched him run through the yard, chasing Mia, his laughter echoing. He was still fragile, his remission a fragile gift, but every smile was a victory. The neighborhood had changed irreversibly. The community garden flourished, a patchwork of vegetables and flowers tended by kids and grandparents alike. The Sunflower Lane sign gleamed under the Denver sky, a reminder of what they had overcome. Emily walked past it daily, her steps lighter, her heart full. The blog had become a small movement. Parents from across the country shared their stories, their struggles with illness, bureaucracy, and small-minded rules. Emily answered every message, her words honest and raw. She wrote about Liam's remission, about Mia's courage, about the neighbors who'd become family. The blog raised enough donations to cover another round of Liam's treatments, and Emily started a fund to help other families, calling it Liam's Light. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a way to turn their pain into hope. Karen's name faded from conversation. Her house sold to a young couple who painted it bright blue, a rebellion against Meadowbrook's old uniformity. The threats stopped, the emails dwindled, and Emily's paranoia eased. She still checked the cameras, but less obsessively. Mia, now 13, took charge of the community garden's social media, posting photos of kids planting seeds. Liam, stronger each day, drew pictures of sunflowers for every neighbor, slipping them into mailboxes with notes that read, "Thank you for my garden." One evening, as the sun set, Emily sat on the porch with her kids, a rare moment of stillness. Liam leaned against her, his head on her shoulder. "Mom, do you think the sunflowers helped me get better?" he asked. Emily kissed his forehead, her voice soft. "I think they helped us all, buddy." Mia, sketching her notebook, looked up and smiled. "They're like us. They keep growing no matter what." Emily's eyes stung, but she didn't cry. She'd cried enough. Now, she wanted to live. The world still watched, but Emily no longer felt its weight. The viral video, the headlines, the hashtags, they were background noise. What mattered was here. Liam's laughter, Mia's sketches, the sunflowers standing tall. They'd faced the storm, Karen's cruelty, the HOA's rules, the fear of loss, and come out stronger. Emily didn't know what the future held. Liam's remission could falter, new battles could arise. But she knew they'd face them together, rooted like those flowers, reaching for the light. As the stars appeared, Emily made another wish. Not for herself, but for every family fighting unseen battles. She wished for their own sunflowers, their own moments of hope. The neighborhood was quiet, the air warm with summer's promise. Liam yawned, Mia closed her sketchbook, and Emily pulled them close. This was enough. This was everything.